it's the second day of the first grade, and we've been told to get out our tablets and fill an entire page with the number 2. Now, this is hardly a surprise, given yesterday's assignments. Page full of 1s, not very challenging. But a page full of 2s, it turns out, can set the stage for the rest of your life. So I get started. 2, boring. I look over my friend Freddie Ellis's paper. Now, Freddie and I go way back. We've known each other since preschool. Freddie's doing something crazy with his 2s. Right here at this place, instead of making that sharp right, Freddie's doing a little loop. Hey, I want some of that. So I give that a try. Oh, yeah. Oh, now I see what Freddie's got going on. Oh, now I'm starting to feel it. Oh, yeah. Oh, you see that little upturn right there? That's all me. And each 2 after that becomes a little bit more of an expression of who I am. That upturn becomes a spiral. A hook forms at the beginning of each 2. That inner swoop becomes a cavernous expanse of all that is good. Oh my God. So this is what schoolwork is going to be like? Days and years spent following my artistic passion, discovering new avenues of creativity, the very essence of what it is to be human. And if schoolwork is this satisfying, I bet real work is going to be even better. My final 2 is nothing short of a masterpiece. The culmination of all the artistic drive that I have to offer. I've left it all on the page. Later, after recess, we get our papers back, and my final 2 has been crossed out. X right through the middle of it. And just in case I missed the point, written right above it in bright red ink is a single word: wrong. And my teacher's right, of course. I mean, she has a point. This is wrong. I mean, this is not a 2. And it's her job to teach me this early on. I mean, if this sort of rampant self-expression goes unchecked or, God forbid, gets rewarded, what kind of a world would we live in then? I'm 21 years old with no work skill or experience, so the woman at the employment agency is giving me a little test. I'm supposed to put as many of these metal washers on this post as I can, and I've got 60 seconds in which to do it. And go. So I start putting the washers on the post, just like she said. Now, I've never timed myself putting washers on a post before, so I don't really have a baseline by which to judge, but it seems like I'm doing pretty good. I'm kind of warming up to it, getting a little faster as I go. I think I might actually be pretty good at this. Oh, no. What if I'm pretty good at this? What if I'm, like, really good at this? They're going to give me a job doing something like this. Or doing exactly this. There's probably a post-washering factory right up the street looking for full-time help right now. So what if this is it? What if this is what I'm going to do? You know, as in do. Like, so what do you do? Because like it or not, most people think that what you do is who you are. Oh, I wash your posts. Yeah, I'm a post washer. One of the washers slips out of my fingers and rolls towards the edge of the table. I go to grab it, but as I do, I knock the post over, spilling all the washers off onto the table. I know I've only got a few seconds left, so I scoop the washers up into a pile, thinking I'll just grab the post and maybe shove it in there, at least maybe get a couple. Final score: 0 washers in 60 seconds. Now, if we factor this out, that means that I would sit at that table for all eternity and never put a washer on a post. Which is pretty impressive when you think about it. I mean, you'd think after all eternity I'd at least accidentally put a washer on a post, right? But not according to the math. Now, a more business-savvy person would have said to that woman with the stopwatch, hey, I tell you what, I'll give you $1.50 to put those washers on that post for me. Why don't you call me when you're done? I'll be at the golf course. That's the kind of response that gets you moved right up to a CEO position. But you know, I don't really have that sort of entrepreneurial brain, I guess. I never get a call back from that employment agency, which leads me to believe that they didn't have an opening for a post unwasherer. But that's all right. I ended up getting a job. In fact, I got lots of jobs. Now, this may not come as a surprise, but I'm not exactly what you'd call a Vegas guy. I used to pride myself on saying that you couldn't pay me to go to Vegas. And then one day someone said, hey, Barry, we'd like to pay you to go to Vegas. And I said, okay. And that's why I'm here. I thought I was going to make it through life without ever having to put on a tie for the man, but at 37 years old, it happens. Or, not like I've never worn a tie before, of course. I mean, I had to wear one during Easter. But that's different. I mean, that's a clip-on. This may as well have been a clip-on because I don't actually know how to tie a tie, so I had someone tie it for me before he left, and I just took it out of my suitcase and put it over my head and cinched it up. Sure, I could have learned to tie a basic Windsor knot, but that seemed like more of a commitment than I was willing to make for the sake of a job. A knot is so permanent. Clip-ons just pretend. I know this is, strange behavior because ultimately the result is pretty much the same. I mean, there's not a whole lot of difference when you break it down between working a day job at 37 and looking for Easter eggs at 7. No, really, look. You have to dress up, right? Covered that, yeah. It's competitive out there, people. Let me tell you, we did Easter at my aunt's house where I was the youngest of 6 cousins. If you don't get out there and hustle, you come back crying with an empty basket. It's hard work. My aunt lives in the countryside in rural Mississippi with acres of yard butting up against farmland and woods. Look, the backyard is huge. Look, this is just the front yard. You need energy snacks and survival skills just to make it through this Easter egg hunt. And there are poisonous snakes out there. This is dangerous work. There's a boss. Look, don't fool yourself. Even if you're just looking for Easter eggs, there's always a boss. Really, the only difference between the two, and it's kind of the difference, they're by choice. I mean, imagine if you had to look for Easter eggs. Like if your mortgage payment depended on it. And you had to fill out a resume and go to job interviews. Well, it says here, Mr. Smith, you don't have any previous experience. That is true, but I'm very enthusiastic. I'm a fast learner. I think I'll be an amazing addition to your egg acquisition firm. I'm just assuming that's what a resume looks like because at 44 years old, I've managed to run the gauntlet of working life without ever having to have a resume. Never had a resume, still don't know how to tie a tie. This is me at my brother's wedding last summer. Clip on. So I downloaded this resume template just to make that Easter egg joke, and I thought, well, as long as I'm doing a show about all my jobs, I guess I could fill out a resume at the same time, right? Multitasking. And I think when it's all done, you'll be impressed by my resume because of how unimpressive it is. Again, like sitting for all eternity and never putting a washer on a post. You'd think, at least after working for over 30 years, I would have accidentally stumbled on a job that's kind of cool and exotic, like, lion tamer or male stripper. But that's not the case. And I know that some of you have known what you wanted to do since you were 5 years old and have single-mindedly pursued that your whole life. But, it takes some of us a little longer to find our way. Or maybe you've been working jobs your whole life and still don't know what you want to be when you grow up. Or maybe you're just starting out in the world of work and are wondering what might be in store for you. Well, whatever your situation, I think you'll find some part of yourself in every job I've ever had. All right, let's get started. Time is money. Name. All right, well, that's an easy one, right? Also, the most important font decision you will ever make. Objective. Okay. Seeking a position. All right, that's a little harder. Could I just put follow my bliss? You know that expression, right? Follow your bliss. Like you're supposed to find your bliss, that thing that really does it for you, and follow that, and all good things will come from it. Well, my bliss has always been doing these weird little comedy and art projects, and I have followed it my whole life. It's just never coincided with any of the jobs that I've had. I mean, I don't come from a wealthy family, so I've always had to work. I just always saw work as a way to get some money so I could keep doing my bliss. I mean, is it even really possible to combine the two? I mean, can you really get paid to do what you love? All right, seeking a position where following my bliss is my only job requirement. All right, that's probably a little too obscure for a resume. I'll just stick with seeking for now. That'll do. Okay. Education. Finally, a chance to brag about this. I made the 6th grade honor roll. Yes, I know that is a bold claim, and yes, I do have the documentation to back that up. Look, they don't hand these little Hootie Owl certificates out willy-nilly. I'm gonna have something upstairs to get one of these babies. I'm probably just gonna staple that right to the front of my resume. That's the way that works, right? Along with my school transcript, specifically this part right here, where you can see I scored 103 in Bible class. That's 103 out of a possible 100. That's extra credit from God. Good. Okay, accomplishments. Oh man, so many, so many. Well, when I was in high school, I taught myself to spin things on my finger. That kind of screams employability, right? Good. Okay. And job history. So I guess I'll just start at the beginning. This hot little sports car is the Chevy Corvair. Now, in the late 60s, the Corvair was essentially proved to be a coffin on wheels, so they stopped making the Corvair, and it becomes a collector's item. And my dad and all of his neighborhood buddies are Corvair collectors. Now, I don't fully understand the need to stock up on something that's so dangerous that they don't make it anymore, but I guess I should be glad my dad didn't stock up on something even more dangerous, like asbestos siding. And speaking of dangerous fibers, it's too bad that polyester wasn't outlawed at the same time as the Corvair. Imagine the lives we could have saved. So my dad and all of his buddies have Corvairs in various states of disrepair littering the front and backyards. Our next door neighbor gets an A-frame hoist so entire engines can be extracted, and one of these engines gets pulled out of one of my dad's Corvairs and plopped out in our backyard, and the next day my dad hands me a little scraper and he says, "Clean that engine and I'll give you $5. Now, that sounds like I'm being given a choice, right? Like he's saying, hey, if you want $5, here's a way for you to get it. Just saying. But I could tell by his body language what he really meant. So, August afternoon, midday, Mississippi Delta, summertime, 6 years old, scraper in hand, I head out to my first day on the job. And I scrape off a swath of grease from this engine. I fling it in the garbage can. Oh man, this thing reeks of gasoline, but not the gasoline that smells kind of good when you're pumping it, but like nasty, gross, toxic gasoline and sludge. And I scrape off another script and fling it down. I'm already pouring sweat. It's only been like 2 minutes because this is Mississippi in summertime. These are the weather conditions that created blues music. And I'm already pouring sweat, and I look up the street. I can see my friends playing kickball, and I stand back to take this entire engine in. Oh no, this is gonna take me all summer. I hate this. I hate work. So I start to go through that list in my head. You know the list I'm talking about because I know it at 6 years old and no one's ever told it to me, so it's gotta be in our DNA somewhere. It's that list that you go through to talk yourself through a bad working situation. Well, at least I'm getting paid well. That's true. $5, I've never made any money before now. $5 is a big spike in my income. Temporary, you know, I'll get through this. It's not like I'm gonna do this forever. There's a saying that we have down south that goes like this. Well, it beats poking in shit with a stick. The point being, of course, that as bad as things are, they can always get worse. So yeah, not poking in shit with a stick. Now, a more business-savvy kid would have found one of his neighborhood buddies and said, hey, I tell you what, I'll give you $3 to clean off this engine. You call me when you're done, I'll be on the teeter-totter. But again, I don't really have that entrepreneurial sort of brain. And I scrape that engine, it's like, you know, forever. And all I know as I stand there is that given my life choices, motivations, ambitions, and decisions up to this point, this is the best job I'm currently capable of having. So I finish scraping, 10 minutes later, that's enough, I'm done. I go inside, drop off the scraper, announce that I am finished, and I managed to avoid the work world for another 6 years. Oh, and my dad never paid me that $5 that he promised me. So when you factor in nearly 30 years of penalties and compounded interest, if I ever do get collect from him, it will easily be the highest hourly wage I have ever pulled down. So, there we go. First job on the resume, engine scraper. Now, okay, I know enough about resumes. You're not supposed to put things like engine scraper on there. You're supposed to use kind of flowery language, right? I know. But I don't think that's really going to help me much in the long run. So, I'm just going to start out with the policy of honesty. Engine scraper. I scraped an engine. And after this first work debacle, my dad takes me aside and he offers me the best employment advice that he's capable of giving. It's not follow your bliss or do what you love and the money will come or even to thine own self be true. It's this. You pay, then you play. It's good sound advice, right? You pay, then you play. And it rhymes too, which always helps when giving advice to kids. Like Dr. Seuss wrote a financial planning book. And I can see where my dad settled on this particular bit of wisdom. He worked a 9-to-5 for his entire career, just like his father before him. My grandmother was the hardest working woman I've ever met, cooking, cleaning, raising kids, growing gardens. My mother was a hardworking receptionist, bookkeeper, raised 2 kids of her own. Her father was a hardcore old Mississippi farmer guy, hardworking man. Her mother had been turned permanently mean from a life of hard work. See that fist? That's not arthritis. That's just a fist. And like I said, I don't come from a rich family. All my immediate ancestors are all from the Mississippi Delta, cotton gin, riverboat, timber mill workers, a lineage of hard times and hard work, a lot of pay and not a lot of playing. And I'm not saying that you pay, then you play is bad advice. I'm just saying that I've spent my whole life looking for a loophole. Well, my very next job comes to me from my step-grandmother. My mother's parents were divorced before I was even born, and my grandfather marries a woman who's pretty much the exact opposite of his first wife. See, even my grandfather's doing like a matrimonial version of, you pay, then you play. My step-grandmother works at the local bar, so local, in fact, you can walk to it from my school. So she gives me a job after school cleaning up the bar. Sometimes she'll be busy in the back, so I'll have to fill in for her as a bartender, as a 12-year-old bartender. And this is a real serious good old boy bar in Mississippi, but luckily most of the good old boys are related to me, so, you know, it's a fact of life that if you're a kid in the South, one of your duties is to get beer for your relatives. Only, in this case, I'm getting paid for it, and my work history has just tripled. Now, when I turned 14, my family moves to California. My dad decides, well, we're in California, I guess we need to do some landscaping. That's what you do here, right? So there's this hill behind our house, and he wants to put some plants on it. So he tells me and my brother to clear all the rocks off of this hill. And we have to have it done by Monday morning, you know, no big deal. And he's actually going to pay us for it. A flat rate, not hourly. We just have to have everything off in a couple of days. And so my brother and I go out and we get started. We're supposed to move these rocks back to this lemon grove right behind the hill. And we start tossing the rocks back there. Soon we're throwing the rocks back there. And soon we're naming targets. Like, all right, first one to hit that lemon tree. First one to hit that lemon. And then we're stacking up cans on a log and throwing rocks at that. And I'm thinking, hey, I'm onto something. I'm having fun and getting paid. I'm feeling like some sort of employment alchemist. I've taken these 2 elements that I've been given and I've created a superior third. I've joined these 2 worlds together and I'm living in the overlap. Throwing rocks at something is something I would be doing anyway, and now I'm getting paid for it. I've arrived at that place we all want to be. I'm getting paid to play. But my father comes out and catches us enjoying ourselves when we're clearly not supposed to be enjoying ourselves. He has no appreciation for my Venn diagram. He makes it very clear that this formula is not to be tampered with. You pay, then you play. These 2 items are philosophically exclusive and must never coincide. Of course, he's not quite so calm when he explains it to me, and he doesn't use PowerPoint. But, you know, I get the message, fine, whatever, I understand. We clear the rocks off in plenty of time, and he actually pays me this time. So I get to put that on my resume. Now after this, probably to teach me a lesson, the sort of lesson that making kids get paper routes teaches them, he makes me get a paper route. And I guess I'm supposed to learn to manage my finances or something, I don't know. I don't, I just spend all my money on cool stuff for my bike. And you know, whenever you read these autobiographies of these big millionaires, they always look back at their paper route as where it all started for them, you know, the kernel of their empire, and then they built it up into this huge, magnificent thing. And well, I guess I don't have that sort of entrepreneurial brain, like I said. And I did build my paper route up to something. I just kind of built it up to a little comedy routine.
Faster than a speeding guard dog, more powerful than a Santa Ana. Able to bunny hop tall sprinklers in a single bound. Look, on the road. It's a car. It's a bike. No, it's Super Paper Boy. Yes, it's Super Paper Boy. The mild-mannered paper boy Barry Smith by day, but when he utters his secret words, he turns into Super Paper Boy. This episode, the shortage strikes.
It's a form of ambition. That summer, we go to the beach, and I see this guy doing a juggling routine. Now, I've never seen anyone juggle in person before, so I'm mesmerized by this guy. And I stand up really close. I memorize what he's doing, and I go home that weekend. I lock myself in my room for the whole weekend, and when I emerge, I'm juggling. I'm juggling everything, always. I can't go to the grocery store without juggling every piece of round fruit at least once. I learned to juggle clubs. I learned to do some balancing tricks. For the next few years, I'm obsessed with juggling. I spend my lunch period at school off juggling in a classroom by myself. Potentially pretty tragic. But this is how I got my first ever juggling gig. Now, Stephanie Anderson sees me juggling, and she asked me to do a juggling show for one of her club functions. Now, Stephanie's never really spoken to me before this moment. I mean, you know, she's kind of out of my league. Then again, I am a high school juggler, so pretty much every girl is out of my league. Now, I want to do this juggling show, but there's no way I'm going to stand up there in front of everyone by myself. So I recruit my best friend, Bill. I teach him to juggle, give him a crash course. He's a pretty fast learner, but more important than that, he doesn't mind looking stupid, which is an important juggling trait to have. So Bill and I, we learned some tricks. We come up with a routine. We get some jokes. We get some matching T-shirts as costumes. And on our big night, we kill. It's amazing. We get most of our tricks right. We get a guy up from the audience and make fun of him and juggle things around, and we juggle torches back and forth. It's amazing. We're a big hit. And afterwards, Stephanie Anderson hands me a $20 bill, and she says, "Thanks. You guys were good." That's what she said. But I could tell that what she meant was, "Oh my God, how could I not have noticed you before now?" Well, Stephanie, that's because before now you didn't realize that I was a juggler, so you just kind of saw me like this. But now that you've seen me do my thing, you realize that I am pretty much a rock star. Oh yeah, that's right, rock star. What? There are a lot of similarities between juggler and rock star. Like rock stars, Bill and I are both now getting gigs, you know, mostly high school or preschool auditoriums and assemblies. But, you know, we're out there, we're building the fan base, we're rocking. You know, there's a certain bad boy mystique that comes with being a rock star, right? I think that same mystique is present when you're able to bend gravity to your will. I think you might get a better sense of this mystique I'm talking about if only you could see just how red those sweatpants really were. And just like rock stars, Bill and I rehearse constantly. This is the only way to stay on top of your game. I actually have some footage from one of our rehearsals. Get ready to rock. All right, that's enough. You get the idea. Really, there's only one difference that I know of between rock star and juggler, and again, it is kind of the difference. Not a lot of juggling groupies out there. Except for Stephanie Anderson, who never quite got over that crush that she developed on me that day. Here's some footage of her on our high school graduation, practically swooning over me. Well, I want to get everybody. Wave. Stephanie! She's kind of shy. So, anyway, juggler. Now, the reason I have all this footage is because my parents had a video camera back in the mid-'80s, and it was always my job to videotape holidays, birthday parties, Easter egg hunts, and this is actually how I got my first ever gig videotaping someone's wedding. Now remember, this is back before everybody had a video camera, so to have your wedding videotaped was a big deal. It was big and expensive, so hiring the likes of me was a bargain. I don't remember exactly who the person was that hired me. I know it wasn't a relative, and I don't think it was a family friend. I know that they hired me without actually meeting me first. Well, I didn't wear that to the wedding, of course. I'm a professional. I didn't wear a tie, but, I wore shoes that didn't have duct tape on them. Now, the only problem is, because of all these years spent videotaping holidays, birthday parties, Easter egg hunts, the video camera battery is kind of shot. And this is clunky old technology. I've got a backup battery, but it's in bad shape too. And you have to wear half the VCR on your hip and hold the big camera here. And there's no battery life indicator, so you don't actually know how much battery you have left. And in order to change the battery, you have to go down and do the whole thing like that. You'll suddenly get a blinking red light, and then the whole thing will go blank. But I've got the batteries both charged up. I'm up there. The wedding's going along pretty nicely. I'm up right towards the front, right there, and the bride and groom and all the people are back here, and we're closing in on it. We're right down to the "and do you" part. And do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded? And suddenly, I see this blinking light in the viewfinder. And I know that means I've only got a few seconds left, but I just need like 45 seconds, please, just this once. Just give me a little bit of extra time. And do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded? Click. And I'm staring into a little blank viewfinder. And I can't change the battery out because that would mean doing this. And I can't do this right now because this is going on. So I just stand there. And he raises the veil and kisses the bride. They turn and face the audience and they walk down the aisle. And I follow them. And when everyone's gone, I swap the battery out really quick and then run outside and get a little bit of footage of them dodging rice, but not very much. And I pop the tape out and I give it to the father of the bride, the man who hired me, and he gives me a check for $100. And I know that all I have to do is get this to the bank before he gets this to his VCR. And I do. And that's why I get to put this on my resume. Now, I never videotape another wedding after this. I mean, who needs that kind of pressure in your life, right? Besides, I don't really want to videotape weddings. I love doing videotape, but I want to do something like cool and creative with videotape, like hip-hop videos. Well, this is the mid-'80s. Hip-hop is still very new to the mainstream. There's still an opportunity for someone like me to get in on the ground floor, or at least to try.
Supreme as the turntable wizard of the hip-hop scene. So listen to it, check it out. But remember this, with the gloves on the wheels of steel, he's reckless. This high-powered music is truly unique.
It's my brother Brian Smith on the zipper. Give it up for him. He's in the audience somewhere here tonight. Well, while waiting for MTV to call me back, I'm working at a law office as a file clerk while going to college. Now, being a file clerk is an easy enough job. Really, the only thing that you need to know in order to file things is the alphabet. And I can still remember this pretty clearly from the first grade. One day there's a big emergency in the law office, and there's some papers that need to be delivered to LA right away, and the usual messenger service is busy. So I volunteer, I figure I'll get out of the filing closet for a little while, company car on the clock, drive around, and when I get back, they realize I'm actually a lot cheaper than their usual messenger service, so my filing duties soon expand to include driving stuff around. And this soon expands to include process serving, delivering people notices to appear in court or that they're being sued. My job is now to hand people things that they don't want. Sometimes they really don't want them. And you've heard that expression, your origin is your destiny. I start to get a sense of that right now, employment-wise. Even at this early age of my life, I can already feel my job's coming full circle. Messenger and process server, that's just adult versions of being a paper boy. The only difference is you can't just toss the documents in the driveway and keep riding, and sometimes they throw the documents back at you. And this is also around the time that I get certified as a professional photocopier. I know that sounds like the kind of resume padding I said I was going to avoid. I mean, really? Professional photocopier? I mean, come on. Who can't make a photocopy? How could you screw up a photocopy? Okay, maybe like this. But I have to photocopy a lot of documents in courthouses, so there's this legal rigmarole I have to go through. It's a really easy test to get certified. I take it, I pass it easy enough. I don't take it that seriously. I didn't know they were going to take my picture after I took this test. Otherwise, I wouldn't have taken all those mushrooms beforehand. All right, well, let's take a look at what we've got so far. I'm not sensing a real career trajectory here. But I mean, like I say, I'm not really thinking in terms of career. I'm just being in the employment moment. All my passions lie outside of work, and again, work is just a way to make some money to continue to fund my increasingly weird art projects. That's my youngest brother. He's now a cop in LA. I feel a little bit responsible. Well, after a couple of years of driving things back and forth to Los Angeles, I decided, I think it's time to take a little sabbatical. Now, I know traditionally a sabbatical is something that you take once you've actually done something from which to take a sabbatical, but I figured, well, why not just skip ahead to employment dessert? I tell an older friend of mine that I'm thinking of taking some time off, go around, travel the world, have some adventures, and he says, what, do you want to end up working at a car wash for the rest of your life? Really? Is that really the way it works? I mean, you deviate from the path just a little bit and suddenly you're at a car wash for the rest of your life? And why car wash? I mean, that's a particularly bad example for me. That really hit home. I hate washing cars. That's like scraping an engine with the hood down. I think I'd rather be a post washer than a car washer. But my friend, whom I actually trust and respect, seems to think that washing cars is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. But what he doesn't know is that I can always fall back on my innate skills as a dental hygienist.
I'll be with you in just a moment. I'm sure you've heard about the tartar epidemic that's been going around, but don't worry, it's rumors, it's all rumors. I think I got it. There we go, okay. Now see, this is just the problem that we're worried about at the American Dental Association. Tiny food particles like this being caught between your teeth can completely ruin your smile. Okay, open wide, open really wide for this, okay? All right, I think you're gonna have fun. You're gonna be a lot more comfortable. Just a sec. Okay, I got it. Oh, he's still. Oh, you've been looking for the family cat for a while, haven't you? Oh, don't worry, she's okay.
My new boss hands me a broom handle, and he points to a pile of crap, actual human feces, and he tells me to take care of it. I'm working in London in a hotel, and the sewage is backed up, and it's created a mound of duty about the size of the top of a picnic table, and it's slowly getting bigger, like a miniature volcano, like Mount Vesuvius, like Krakatoa, like Mount St. Smellens. And as if I really need to drive this point home any further, there are a lot of curry shops near this hotel. And somewhere at the bottom of this pile is a clogged drain, and I've been given this stick, and I'm supposed to unclog it. I don't know why he thinks I'm the guy for this job. I've never had any luck with number 2 before in my life. And as I plunge this stick into this pile of ochre and burnt sienna, the duty of all the people living in this hotel, me, my friends, girls I was previously hoping to sleep with. I'm thinking, how did this happen? How did it get worse? Aren't you supposed to get better jobs as you get older? And now I've got to put this on my resume. I'm not even sure my list is going to help me through this one. Getting paid? Well, not really. I mean, I decided to take that sabbatical after all. I hitchhike around Europe for a couple of months. I end up in London working in a hotel as a chambermaid. This somehow becomes a job working construction, which is what I'm doing now. But this is all under the table, so the pay is as shitty as the work currently is. Temporary? I don't know that anymore. I mean, you know, this is me on the job. You see that Burger King crown that I'm wearing? Traditionally, a crown is a symbol of authority, right? In this case, it's just a symbol of who to hand the stick to when the sewage backs up. If we were to graph my working life thus far, we can see that as far as job satisfaction goes, juggler was the pinnacle of my career. And it's been downhill ever since. I'm in serious danger of being one of those guys that peaked in high school, but I didn't peak as the star quarterback. I peaked as a juggler. So, okay, sure, right. This may be temporary. I may not be doing this forever. According to this graph, I'm going to be doing something worse. And this is the one time when I can't even fall back on the old standby. You know, a more business-savvy person would have handed the stick to someone else and said, hey, I tell you what, I'll give you... Yeah, probably not. As I stand there, stick in hand, I realize that given my life choices, motivations, ambitions, and decisions up to this point, this is the best job I'm currently capable of having. But I want to remain positive, so after much shit poking and soul searching, I finally come up with a 4th item for my list. At least they gave me a stick. Well, after this job ends, I begin what I like to think of as the hand-to-mouth phase of my employment existence. I just do some random jobs to keep myself afloat while I'm overseas. I pick some fruit, I do some unskilled labor, wash some dishes. I work in a factory that only makes brown crayons. This is the kind of job that if it were a recurring nightmare, you would check yourself into therapy. I keep dreaming I'm in a place that only makes brown crayons. What's wrong with me? Well, I decided it's time to take a sabbatical from my sabbatical. So that summer, my friends and I head out to the Glastonbury Music Festival, big outdoor festival. It's like a whole week long. And while I'm there, I hear that after the festival, they hire a crew to clean up all the litter, like down to the very last little bit of paper. This actually seems like a good career move to me at this point. give me a chance to show off my egg hunting skills, right? It's a pretty good job, relatively speaking. They pay kind of well. They actually set up a little makeshift kitchen to feed you all your meals on site. You camp out for 2 weeks until the whole job's done. And the hiring process is simple enough. You just line up the morning after the festival is all over. The guy comes along and goes, all right, you. Why not me? That's when you know things are bad, right? When you can't get a gig picking up cigarette butts. All my friends get hired to pick up litter, and I'm stuck out in the countryside with no food or money and no place to go. So I head over to the litter pickers' little cafe thing and ask if they need any help, and they say, not really, but I tell you what, if you gather up all the dishes after all the litter pickers are done eating their meal, then we'll give you a free meal. So I do. 3 times a day for 2 weeks for food. I'm now cleaning up after the people who are cleaning up. I've reached the bottom of the employment food chain. There's nobody cleaning up after me. Turns out that graph was right. At least as a shit poker, I was getting paid in actual money. This would be a good time to remind you all to stay in school. Well, I returned from my sabbatical. I moved to Colorado. I'm completely broke, so I take up residence on my uncle's couch. And thus begins yet another series of dead-end part-time jobs. You know, there's something about working a job when you're surrounded by people with cool English accents that makes even the most mundane work seem kind of exotic. You know, if you're washing dishes in London, you can always close your eyes and pretend you're in a Monty Python sketch. And the same could be said for other jobs that I have around this period. If done abroad, they just become part of the overall adventure. Like, yeah, I just finished trekking across Nepal for a year, and while I was there, I did some data entry. Wow, what an amazing life you have. But when you're doing these jobs back in your home country, not quite the same appeal. And this is a sobering moment. I mean, I can see some dishwashing from where I stand. I guess I thought that, you know, working all these bad jobs in England was just a phase I was going through, and when I got home, things would be different. And I was right. They are different. They're worse. And I know what I have to do. I have to suck it up and get a real job. But the only thing I know about a real job is that I've never had a real job. So I turned to the classifieds. I guess that's where you go to find a real job, right? And I see that the local conference center is hiring a houseman. Now, I don't know what a houseman is, but that sounds kind of fancy. Like the kind of job you'd be proud to put on your resume, right? So what do? Me? I'm a houseman. And they hire me over the phone, tell me to show up the next morning, and that I can't wear jeans. Wow, no jeans. This is a real job. I've got a real job, just like that. Tomorrow, one where I have to wear real pants. Maybe pants are what's been missing the whole time. The only problem is the last pants that I had that weren't jeans were these. So I have to borrow some big boy pants from my uncle. In fact, I have to borrow an entire wardrobe from my uncle. The pants, the shirt, the shoes, the belt, gotta hold the pants up, right? I even bum a cigarette for him. I show up for my very first day, and my first real job, the only thing that I'm wearing that doesn't belong to my uncle are the glasses. Turns out, houseman is just a fancy job title that's pre-padded for your resume convenience. It's what they call the guys who do all the grunt work at the conference center. Within 5 minutes of showing up at work, I'm moving around tables, chairs, furniture, you know, the kind of work that jeans were originally designed for. For the first time in my life, I'm actually overdressed for something. Still, it'll have to do for now. And while I continue to search the want ads for that perfect job, I noticed that workplace drug testing is starting to come to town. Now, this is the early 90s, so making employees pee in a cup is still a very radical idea. And this gives me my first ever burst of entrepreneurial inspiration. This could be my golden ticket, so to speak. So I take out my own classified. Guaranteed clean urine while supplies last. A reporter sees this and does a story on it. I get a little bit of media attention, including the best pull quote ever. I'm just a guy who sells his urine. What's so weird about that? But no customers. Which is too bad because this really would have been the ultimate work from home situation. Well, yet another want ad leads to me having a part-time job at a local newspaper as the darkroom technician. Now, this is really cool. I've only been hired to develop other people's films, but I love taking pictures. It should be obvious by now. Man, imagine that, to be paid to take cool pictures. And I used to take a lot of pictures in college. I show my new editor some of the pictures I took in college, like this stylized exploration into the hypnotic allure of mass media and the dangers of pretentious self-absorption. And he says, yeah, that's, we're kind of a family community newspaper. I mean, you obviously know how to use a camera. If you want to take some pictures of like cute little kids and ponies, we'd probably print some of that. Yeah, right, dude. I mean, I am this close to having my art and my job coincide. I'm not going to sell out right now. Cute little kids and ponies, those are the kind of pictures that people want to see. I create images that people need to see. He says, yeah, okay, sure, I understand, whatever. But, if you want to take some nice pictures, we'll pay you extra. And I say, okay. I also used to do some writing for my college newspaper, and I tell my new editor this, only now I'm smart enough not to tell him the sort of stuff I used to write, like this piece I wrote about the imagined fashion trend of wearing vegetables over your clothing. So not knowing this about me, he actually hires me as a cub reporter. And it turns out I don't really have a very keen news sense. After a 6-week trial period, the best thing I turn in is a piece about a fire false alarm at a local bakery. Cookie conflagration or a lot of hot air. I thought there was a cover-up. I really sensed a cover-up. I thought this should have been a much bigger piece. I even stormed into his office proposing a full series of investigative articles with pictures. And he counter-proposed that I should just go back to being the guy who stays in the dark room. All right, fine, whatever. I tried. And I get to keep these for my resume. Yet another one ad leads me to a part-time job at a radio station. Now, it's mostly admin stuff, typing and whatnot. I do have my own weekly late-night show. It's kind of cool. I've been told I have a pretty good radio voice. So this show, I guess, could have had some commercial potential if only I'd chosen a different name for it. I remember back in the conference center, there were always these guys walking around with video cameras and audio equipment and lights, and I think, well, that's the job for me, right? I mean, imagine getting paid to videotape something that's not a wedding. I have never wanted a job more in my entire life, and I get it, AV guy. Well, it turns out there is something out there worse than taping weddings. As an AV guy, mostly the only thing I get to videotape are these medical meetings. Now, these medical meetings are the most boring thing that exists on planet Earth. And I know that sounds like an exaggeration, but I have proof.
We are going to switch gears now to congenital brain and callosus redux. We're going to go back to visit the corpus callosum. I won't sugarcoat it. There is a bit of embryology in here, but it's a very interesting story, and I hope that by the end of this, you will appreciate the interesting embryology like I do. One of the things that I've had the pleasure of doing or the joy of doing is going back to the original literature on many of these topics, and the corpus callosum is one of them. Lipomas is another. Some of you have heard my cella talk and know that if the sphenoid bone is aerated, people are airheads, and if the bone is not aerated, then boneheads. And in the intracranial compartment, if you have a lipoma, the callosal structures, lipomas, holocrons, and other meningeal type problems, and even daily walking malformation. And then disorders of neuronal proliferation, migration, and polarization, and just a short list of that. So we're going to focus on this, and if we can get through it, we'll go down through the rest of these, but I doubt we'll get there. Here is that cingulum that fails to evert The cingulum should be running this direction in the coronal plane, and here it's running this direction. So definitely not in the right plane, the cingulum being right here, and has not everted. If the corpus develops underneath it, it'll push up the cingulum, and you'll have the normal cingulum, and then you go back here, and you have not only the corpus callosum, but the cingulum.
Now, I know what you're thinking. Why on earth would you play a 20-minute video right now and break any sort of momentum you may have gained? Well, let me tell you, that video is exactly 90 seconds long. That's from a talk that's 45 minutes long. There are 10 of these talks per day. These gigs can last as long as one solid week. The math's pretty simple on this one. That adds up to forever. And never mind the boredom, what about the psychological damage after sitting all day looking at these brain scans? It's like looking at these Rorschach tests. You will start to hallucinate. It is not pleasant. So, for the next 3 or so years, I'm juggling these 3 jobs. AV guy, radio guy, darkroom guy. None of them are what I really want to do, but at least I'm trying. I'm working 3 jobs, 70 hours a week. The guy who couldn't get a gig picking up cigarette butts is suddenly working full time, and none of them are what I want to do, but at least I'm trying, and I think if I keep trying, I won't be stuck here forever. Someday I'll find the job I want, right? It's not like I'm going to have to work 3 jobs always, and that's true. Because one morning, on the way to one of these jobs, a car hits mine. And it's not a bad wreck, but afterwards I start to have these memory problems and concentration issues. I'm sent to this big medical facility for a full day of testing, where it's an array of people with clipboards asking me to identify animal silhouettes and count backwards and figure out which thing is not like the other. It's like adult Sesame Street. And for the second time in my life, I'm told to put washers on a post while somebody times me. I do a little bit better at it this time, but apparently not good enough, because the test results come back to show that I've sustained some minor brain damage, and from this point forward, I am legally unable to work, and am being paid by my insurance company to not work. So that is my new job. And I'm not malingering either. I'm really tweaked. There are moments where I can barely concentrate enough to open up a can of soup. I have these concentration issues, these lapses in short-term memory, and none of the doctors can tell me how long this condition will last, so I don't know when or if I'll ever get to go back to work. Maybe never. And believe it or not, when you're not doing it by choice, doing nothing is a pretty bad job. Enough that I have to pull out the list again. At least I'm getting paid well. All right, well, that is true. The beauty of getting paid to do nothing is if you get a lot of nothing done in a short amount of time, you're effectively increasing your hourly wage. The only downside, no vacation time. Temporary. Oh, well, that is the beauty of memory loss. Everything seems temporary, even if it lasts forever. And not poking in shit with a stick. Got that going for me. Except that since this accident, I have been spotted reclining in a pickup truck bed full of cow manure. Sure, I'm not poking in shit, I'm lounging in it. I wish I could say that I'm doing this as a joke, but I don't remember. I also don't remember this, but according to some of the other pictures on this roll of film, I'm apparently sitting butt naked on somebody's bulldozer in the dead of winter. You'd think I would at least remember how cold that seat must have been. There has never been anyone more in need of a job than me right now. So I start to do some writing. I start to really focus on it. I've always loved writing my whole life, all those little poems and audio and video and stuff I've done. That's been my thing, but now I've got some time, and I take these moments of clarity and I write. And I write a funny little essay about what it's like to watch the entire O.J. Simpson trial on TV. And I send it into the local newspaper, the same paper where I once tried to sell my urine. I open up the paper the next day, and they've printed it as a guest column. Wow. So I write something again for the next week, and they print that. And after a couple of guest columns, they give me my very own weekly slot. I've got a whole week to seize these little windows of opportunity and do my best. And people seem to like it. I'm getting good feedback. People like it. After all these years of doing my little art, I've never tried to put it into the world before. I've never connected with anyone. It's a great feeling. And I haven't stopped. I've published a column every week since that day. You know, some days are pretty good. Thank you. Some days are better than others. Some days not so good, you know, you never know. Sometimes I sit there and it's like the words just flow, and other times I stare at the screen and think, what the hell am I doing? You know, like a job. Wow, it's a job. And probably because of the writing, after about a year from my accident, I take some more tests and I've got some more focus. So I go back into the work world. I'm allowed to go back and work. I don't make enough money as a columnist to pay the bills, but I go back to the world of AV guy, where I sit through pictures of other people's damaged brains all day long. But now things are different because I've got this little taste of creativity and I want some more. So I start to slowly put my art out into the world. Gently, I start hosting open mic poetry readings, which we all know is just an excuse to, read your own poems in front of other people. I even published my own book of poems around this time, Ode to Mustard. Now, I've sold almost a dozen copies of Ode to Mustard in the last 10 years, so boom. I'm selling them by the pound now, if anyone's interested. Someone sees me doing one of my little poetry readings and casts me in a solo show where I play an elf, the 6'4" elf. See, I knew my juggling experience would come in handy someday, not the juggling part so much as the being okay with standing on stage dressed like an idiot part. So now I've done a solo show and I'm writing a column and I'm working as an AV guy, so I think, well, what if I combine the three? I'll write my own show, and I'll use PowerPoint, like what I have to sit through all day long, except I'll do comedy PowerPoint. So for the next year, I write a comedy show about this weird thing that happened to me in my 20s, where I was convinced that Jesus was alive and well and living in Montana, for real. And I debut it locally. I toured around to some other theaters, and it goes really well. People really like it. I win some awards and sell out shows. It's amazing. I've got this amazing creative momentum. I'm still working full-time as an AV guy, but I've got this momentum from this set of circumstances that I never would have imagined. So for the next 2 years, I write 2 more autobiographical shows, each one about moments in my life that never would have happened if I settled for that 9-to-5 job that I hated. And I arranged for an entire summer-long tour of theater festivals. And before I leave on my very first tour, I call up my AV boss and I tell him that I quit. After years of working jobs that I barely tolerated, always wondering if my bliss and my bills would ever come together, I finally found one that I really enjoy. And even as the phone is ringing, I know that this is the moment when everything changes for me. The moment when my employment life goes from a reluctant clip-on to an actual knot. And I hit the road that summer, 4 months in my van all the way across from east to west, 80 performances, 10 cities, unlike anything I've ever done. And it's amazing and fun and life-changing because I got paid. I got paid to play, finally. And looking back, I can see how everything makes perfect sense. Every job I've ever had has contributed something to my life, even if just a little bit. My jobs taught me how to take pictures, how to shoot video. Data entry taught me how to type. Juggler taught me to be on stage without being afraid. AV guy taught me to do PowerPoint. Process server, handing people things they don't want. It's a very handy skill to have when you're out promoting your show. Dishwasher. It's as important to know what you don't want to do as what you do want to do. And I think deep down we all know what our bliss really is. And sometimes following it isn't necessarily a straight path. It can be a winding road or even seem like complete randomness. It could be that you don't know what it is that you're trying to create until you've connected some dots. And you can't connect dots until you have some dots to connect. And you might be surprised to find that they connect to form that picture that you've been trying to form your whole life. So you may as well enjoy the journey, right? I mean, don't wait for brain damage to come along and sort it out for you. And this brings us to right now, to this moment, where my job is now to talk about all the jobs that I've had instead of having a real job. And it's the last job on my resume. For now, anyway. I mean, I have no idea what's going to happen next, but I am excited to find out. All I know is that given my life choices, motivations, ambitions, and decisions up to this point, this is the best job that I'm currently capable of having. Thank you. Thank you. Now, as promised, I'd like to leave you all with a copy of my resume. References available on request. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Well, I wake up in the morning, hold my hands and pray for rain. I got a head full of ideas that are driving me insane. It's a shame the way she makes me scrub the floor.